Hey, I've got something chilling for you. John Wayne Gacy once bragged, I killed 33 times. You're only going to kill me once, and he wasn't lying. This man outwitted everyone around him, even the police, until it was too late. By 1978, his house was filled with the bodies of his victims buried right beneath his feet. But Gacy, always calculating, found a new way to dispose of the bodies, dumping them from the interstate bridge into the Des Plaines River. It all started unraveling on December 11th, 1978. 15-year-old Robert Pius told his mother he was going to meet Gacy about a job offer in construction. Hours passed and Robert never returned home. When his worried parents contacted the police, they began investigating Gacy. Inside his house, they uncovered strange and disturbing items: police badges, a pistol, hypodermic needles, and even pornographic films. Some of the objects belonged to Gacy's victims. Then, the breakthrough came. Police found a receipt with Robert Pius' name among Gacy's belongings, contradicting Gacy's claim that he had never met the boy. The walls of deception began to crumble. With no other choice, police searched further and found a gruesome discovery: trenches beneath Gacy's house filled with the remains of his victims. Eventually, Gacy confessed he had killed 33 people. But the story of John Wayne Gacy didn't start there. It began much earlier, rooted in a troubled past and a twisted mind. In 1968, Gacy was accused of sexually assaulting a teenage boy. Although he denied the charges and managed to convince many people he was innocent, his true nature began to surface. In a desperate attempt to avoid conviction, Gacy instructed one of his employees to attack the victim so they couldn't testify. The plan failed. Gacy was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and his wife divorced him, taking their children. But Gacy, ever manipulative, became a model prisoner and was released on parole after just 18 months in 1970. After his release, Gacy seemed to rebuild his life. He married his high school sweetheart, Carol Hoff, and with financial help from his mother, bought a house in Norwood Park, Illinois. But beneath this new life lay the seeds of horror. This was the very house where all his future murders would occur. In 1971, Gacy launched his own business, PDM Contractors. Many of his employees were young boys and teenagers, people Gacy would later lure into his sinister games. Gacy's charm hit a monster. He was well-liked in the community, even hosting summer parties that were popular among neighbors. At these events, he performed as Pogo the Clown, spreading joy on the surface while harboring unspeakable darkness within. The first of Gacy's victims was 16-year-old Timothy McCoy. In 1972, Gacy lured McCoy to his house under false pretenses. The next morning, Gacy spotted McCoy standing at the door with a knife in hand. In a moment of panic, Gacy attacked and killed him, only to realize later that McCoy was holding the knife to prepare breakfast. This murder gave Gacy a twisted sense of satisfaction. From that moment, Gacy knew death was the ultimate thrill. One of Gacy's many victims was John Butkovich, an 18-year-old employee. Gacy invited him over, offered him drinks, and strangled him using handcuffs, a trick Gacy perfected over time. Despite the desperate pleas of Butkovich's parents, the police failed to take action. In the mid-1970s, Gacy's killings became routine. He would cruise the streets, luring young men and boys back to his house. One of his victims, Gregory Godzik, was hired by Gacy to dig trenches in the yard trenches that would later become graves. Gacy's sadism reached its peak when he tortured 17-year-old Robert Donnelly. Gacy tried to drown Donnelly and the boy begged for death. Instead, Gacy let him go, calling it a consensual encounter. Incredibly, the police believed him, allowing Gacy to continue his spree. Gacy's dark past began with an abusive childhood. His father, a violent alcoholic, regularly beat him and called him a failure. As a child, Gacy was sexually assaulted by a family member, experiences that warped his mind and contributed to his cruelty. Despite his troubled past, Gacy managed to become a respected businessman and even a political figure, but the monster inside him continued to grow. Through his work as Pogo the Clown, Gacy embraced the idea that clowns could get away with murder. In 1979, after Gacy's arrest, authorities dismantled his house to search for more evidence. A worker famously remarked, "If the devil lived anywhere, it was here." Gacy's trial began on February 6, 1980. He tried to plead insanity, claiming he had multiple personalities, but the jury saw through his lies. On March 12, 1980, Gacy was found guilty of 33 murders, cementing his place in history as one of the most infamous serial killers. Gacy spent 14 years on death row, painting pictures of clowns while appealing his sentence. On May 10, 1994, Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His final words? "Kiss my ass." Even years after his death, the horror of Gacy's actions lingers. Some of his victims remained unidentified until 2017 and 2021, when new DNA evidence finally brought closure to their families. John Wayne Gacy's story is a haunting reminder that monsters can wear the most ordinary masks. Despite his success and social status, Gacy's past traumas and twisted desires unleashed a wave of unimaginable cruelty. His life and crimes continue to serve as a dark lesson. The most dangerous evil often hides in plain sight. Stay vigilant, because sometimes the real monsters are the ones we least expect. Until we meet again,